All right, so today we play whose electric bill is going to be the highest. I got an AC unit for the garage. This garage is insulated, so I'm really curious to see what happens. And right now it's like peak heat. It's cooled off. It was 90 degrees in here. It's dropped down to maybe 85-ish. Actually, it says right here, 83. Pretty excited about that. Obviously, the Pontiac is outside. We're going to come out here tonight and clean up this valve grinder. We don't really have anything car-related to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the changes that I've done. I did make a video about it. I removed it because apparently YouTube flagged it. Don't know why. So I'll touch base on that again, and you guys are going to have to bear with me on that one. It's going to be a little long, so bear with me. Alright guys, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this video. So I made a video a couple days ago explaining my situation. For some reason, YouTube flagged it, and I had to remove it. Really do not know why that happened. That was really odd because it was just a talking topic. So I'm going to touch base on that again. So I've been doing bodywork for almost 20 years. In the infancy of my career, I moved around a little bit. And I was known for having a little bit of an attitude problem. And as the years changed, I kind of mellowed out. The older I get, I don't tolerate bullshit very well. I've learned to tone it back. So my situation at work is kind of a little fucked up because it falls into the category of a couple of different things. And one of them, I'm affected by the entire industry being short on techs. So I'm kind of at the mercy of just making my own choice and going with it. So what was happening was we have a painter in the shop, and I have a good background and relationship with him, which at this point it's very upsetting that that was happening because, you know, he knew it was directly affecting me. So I think that at that point it does become personal, even though he says he was just going to do whatever was going to pay him the fastest, as we are flat rate techs. I did a lot of the bigger work, and whenever I did do that work, a lot of it just sat and sat and sat until he decided it was ready for primer and whatever other things he needed to do. Now, I did bring it up with my boss various times, and it's almost been like a year to the date that it kind of started. Not exactly a year, but coming up on it fairly fast. It was a really big front-end job, and it just sat and sat and sat and sat. And I understand that there's time frames, and I'm not asking for favoritism here, but it just got to the point where a couple of weeks ago we had a job. We went on 6 summer. The car sat for a week. I left it ready to cut the quarter panel out, cut the rear body out. I had done a bunch of the mechanical work already. And then it went up for paint, and then it sat because it needed primer. I hung a new quarter panel on it, and then I painted the rear body actually so that I can do the interior work. And then he wanted to take that time when actually I did it, and that became an issue. And it was just, again, I don't know what the fuck was going on, but I'm done, and I decided to put my 2 weeks in, and my toolbox is currently at the new shop I'm going to be working at. And hopefully things will well. I mean, when you change shops, nothing is guaranteed. It's a different shop, it's a different atmosphere, different people, different environment. Equipment-wise, this shop is very well equipped. It's actually a little bit of a smaller operation, but equipped very well. So hopefully it'll be a good. I'm coming in as the main structural guy, which is what I was already kind of doing at my current place. So at least that way, you know, and sometimes it does become a big bear on you to do those jobs, but it mixes up pretty well, and it is what it is. But so, you know, you can only complain so much, or bring up before it becomes like a moot point, and it's like, it's not necessarily falling on deaf ears, but at what point do you begin to think it's just a level of passiveness? Because this has been happening for almost a year, and I understand that finding people is hard, but I repeatedly brought it up, and I think that I took the most professional approach to it that I could, and I can't make anybody fire anybody, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, you know, there was a point in that shop where we could not find a body guy. I worked from January until September when we found another body tech back in 2020, I want to say. I did 9 months pretty much solo in the shop, taking care of everything that came in. And it was constant chaos. There were some big jobs, and when you're one person, it's very overwhelming. No matter what the load is, you got, you know, a lot on your plate for the most part. So, and I had helpers that just weren't helping, and at that point I was actually quite an angry person. And obviously I didn't bring it up, but I did leave that shop about almost 2 years ago, and then came back. There was some really toxic people there doing drugs on the job, literally getting high on company time, and I was kind of getting singled out and antagonized. And it literally got to the point where it almost came to blows, and a fight had to get broken up by my boss, which I in no way am going to badmouth them, because they, as a family and as owners, have been good to me. As you guys may see some of my videos and stuff, I use the shop to test the car. I would back my trailer in overnight instead of unloading it and bringing it in the garage. So I gave up a bunch of those perks because my sanity is worth a lot more. And really, the last race, we did the whole loading it on the street, unloading it, and bringing it in the house, and it was actually, it was less work. I just have to go 5 minutes up the road and pick up my trailer where I have it at now, and it's really not that big of a deal, because now I don't have to do this whole walking when I have a car there and then back, and again, it was a whole deal. It was actually a deal to work that out, because my wife wasn't available to drive me anymore because she was working a later shift. So that also all season was a thing where I would have to drop the car and then walk home for lunch, grab the truck, and then hook up the trailer and do all that stuff. Well, again, it's 6 of what, half a dozen of the other. And again, I can't, ultimately, I'm not trying to come off like an asshole, bitter tech, but I actually have heard this from many guys. After about 2 or 3 years of being in a shop or in a crew situation, you just get tired of dealing with the same people. You spend 80% of the best hours of your day, the day, at one place. And the last thing you want is for something to really affect you, especially in the shop. I go into work, ready to go. I drop all my bullshit at the door, and I'm ready to hit it. I don't let my bills be in the back of my mind. I don't let the racing be in the back of my mind. I don't let any of that bother me. I turn it off. It's something I learned tagging along with my dad to work, which I did from a very young age. He worked for a huge company that had at one point various franchises from Canada to Australia, and all they specialized was in industrial stripping, derusting, sandblasting, oven, kiln coating removing, you name it, they did it. And my dad had to not only oversee a crew of about 15 guys, but he had to keep up with every single department and know where everything was at and that it was done right and on time, because they had all these huge corporate accounts with John Deere, Navistar, Caterpillar, EMD, Electromotive Diesel. I mean, you name it, they did a ton of work for all these big companies, and my dad was responsible for that. And I tagged along with him from a very young age and learned, how he dealt with people. And the older I've gotten, the more I've kind of relied on my dad for advice on that kind of stuff, because my dad dealt with it for over 30 years. It's like you got 15 different people, 15 different attitudes, 50 different mindsets. So those 15 people aren't always going to work together well. My dad actually also worked with his brother, and my dad told me there was periods where he would not talk to his brother even though they shared an office. There was times where they would not talk for months. So it's kind of like insanity. My dad put up with a lot, but we did kind of grow up poor, and my dad didn't have the option of finding that job because that job was kind of unique to what he did. And I am lucky that I have options, and these things come up fairly easy, you know. My resume looks great, and it hasn't been hindered much. So I've managed to, you know, earlier in my career I made some moves. You know, I worked for this shop for, you know, cumulatively, not all together, but almost 11 years, and that looks good. You know, a lot of techs move around. So as technicians out there, whether you're a pipe fitter, whether you are a plumber, whether you are a carpenter, I want to know how you guys deal with that, because there's guys who hold a job for a long time, but you just have to deal with people, and especially when you're on a crew and you're all part of, like, you know, a caterpillar has many legs and they all have to work. Like when you got one that's busted or not doing what it's supposed to do, like, how do you guys deal with that? Because I put up with it and bit my tongue, and it could have been way worse for like a year. And then I just said, you know what, I'm done with it. I'm not going to make you fire somebody that I know you can't get rid of, because, again, the reality is the shop where I am at, I have been there for quite a while. They have had a hard time, 1, keeping techs, 2, finding techs that are worth a fuck, and 3, finding reliable people. I mean, we would literally have guys that would disappear for 4 or 5 days, come in like nothing happened, and just go to work, and apparently that was fine. So, I mean, it is what it is. There's certain realities that you have to respect, and in that case, I'm just walking away. So, that's all I can do. It's the only thing I can do. I can't make somebody fire somebody, no matter how much of a piece of shit I'm going to call them. But, you know, ultimately, there was another tech there that can kind of take care of the job. But the last time I left big shoes to fill, and I came back to a shit show, which just proves, I guess, that I can take on a lot. So that's kind of reaffirming in a little way. But I don't like being that guy. I don't believe in the A/B tech role. I just believe that we're all a team. Everybody just has to do their job. But time will tell. You know, I'm not going to be there no longer. But if things improve, then clearly something changed. It's either because A, I left, or B, they just didn't like me. So whatever the case is, something's bound to change. But it is what it is. You know, there is no gripe on my end. We're getting ready to do a couple things. I got a couple days off, so I might be at the machine shop actually working on the 427 heads. We're going to try to get those done so I can get that engine fired up. It would be nice to have that engine fired up before the winter, and actually my machinist gifted me a transmission that I can rebuild, that'll work. And so that kind of helps out huge. And we're just going to fucking hit it. So we're going to still be on par to build the Pontiac as our main bread and butter racer for next year. And we already pre-signed up for the interest in the 6 summer event. So hopefully we can do that next year. And I hope you guys enjoyed this version of this video. The last one, for some reason, got flagged. So kind of interesting. That's kind of never happened before. So enjoy. Share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, A Cup of Cutlass, and you guys can see more of the other stuff that I do.